All right, guys, here we go. So this guy, whether you know him or not, is a classmate of yours. Hunter is in section 3 of the entrepreneurship class and has also been starting a business during the semester and pandemic. So Hunter's going to walk us through his experience so far. So Hunter, let's start with, life story stuff. Where are you from?
I'm from Utah, just like north of Salt Lake a little bit.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have two older brothers, and they're both still in Utah.
Yeah. How did you land in Fayetteville, Arkansas?
I run track, and that was just one of the schools that had recruited me, and I just liked everything that was going on here. So
What are your events?
I run the 400 mainly, and like 4x4, and then I've ran a few 8s and 2s while I've been here, but mostly the 4.
And have you been a runner since you were a little kid? Like, has that always been your thing?
I started running in like 7th grade was the first time I ever ran on a track team. I played a lot of different sports. And when I started running track, like I wasn't very good at it. I just ran because some of my friends were running and it was like somewhere I felt comfortable. And then as the years went on, like to my sophomore year is when I dropped every other sport. So my junior year was just track and been running track solely since then.
Got it. Well, what was your starting point? Did you grow up with parents who started businesses? What had been your sort of exposure to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, my parents so
Small
in like
barking dog.
that's not good. So growing up from like kindergarten to 4th grade, I was homeschooled. My dad's in the Air Force, so we were moving around a lot. And then in 5th grade, my parents actually started their own business, which is why I had to go to public school. So
Damn
yeah, right.
it. What did they do?
So my dad was an EOD in the Air Force, which basically means he like the guys who go and find the bombs and things and turn them off. He was that, so he's used to working with explosives. So they started a company where they clean power plants, and the way they clean these power plants is with like explosives and charges and things like that. So it's pretty insane.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
My mom's a dentist. It's not
Hey, that's cool too.
but I did grow up around sort of small business, because my parents ran their own business. So I do think that sort of informs, somebody's interest or sort of willingness to try something. So for your current endeavor, how did this come to be? What's the origin story?
So my business partner who owns like a few other businesses in Fayetteville, he owned Smudgies. He owns like the EVM Jeweler, Golden Diamond Co., like a bunch of stuff around Fayetteville. Him and I were friends, and we were talking in his jewelry store about something completely different. And he just said, "Hey man, I have this like crazy idea." Because in the shirt shop, he also owns a shirt shop. They had ordered something for a customer and they sent some hoodies in, and the hoodies were just like the wrong size and they were way too big. And Jonathan had been like, man, these are really funny. Like we should do something with these. So then he approached me and just said, hey, this is my idea. Like I would love to like start it up. And through our conversation, I had told him like, I do the marketing side of things, like freelance photography, freelance video and all that kind of stuff. And then we just kind of said, hey, let's try it out, see what happens.
Yeah. So I think that sort of serendipitous or opportunistic kind of thing happens quite a lot. But you mentioned sort of photography and video, but what skills, how had you come to develop those skills? Like, I think often what makes it possible to take it from an idea to an actual thing is having some pre-existing skill set. So how did that develop?
Absolutely. And equivalently for like my other partners, so there's 3 of us that do it, and Jonathan is very numbers oriented, especially when he's working with his other businesses. So He focuses on like inventory, supply, just kind of everything running smoothly. Matt, who's our other partner, is a web designer, and he went to school for that. He worked at Tyson for a while, and kind of worked in, the real world and gained those skills, and then came here. And for me, I've always done stuff on like social media, which is where I kind of learned to use a camera and edit and do all of these things and like market and learn how to get people's eyes on a certain thing. And then I created like a freelance business and said, man, I could like to use my skills like with a camera to make more money. So then I started doing it professionally, and then it just kind of led into what I do now for the company.
And what was the freelance business called? Like when you decided I'm going to offer my services to the public, what did you call it?
I just made it simple and just called it HRW Media, which is just Hunter Woodhall Media, and just went from there. Started up an LLC, and then just kind of started reaching out to people.
Yeah, that's rad. No, I think it's a thing that people have a hard time kind of push and go.
Yeah,
And my experience has been that push and go actually is the easy part. And, that should never be the thing that stops you, because, setting up an entity and getting a bank account in place and that kind of stuff is relatively straightforward and can be done really in a matter of a day or two.
yeah,
It's what you do with it once it exists. That's the always open question. But I think, I always encourage people to have a thing that you do, a skill set that is like your thing. And you can really apply that to sort of any endeavor. So I think it's smart that has worked out for you that way.
yeah, definitely. And I also think like when we were kind of like getting the company together and started up, like at first it was like, man, like we need to get everything perfect before we, like you said, press go. And then we're just like, man, let's just launch it, see what happens, and then like learn as we go and continuously get better. So that's what we did. We just kind of cold launched it, and we just kept learning from the start.
And what was your sort of initial sort of like launch plan or launch platform? Was it your existing like Instagram followers, or how did you sort of optimize your initial offering?
Yeah, definitely. From the beginning, I never wanted to make it like, I didn't want people to see it as like, oh, this is like a merchandise brand or something like that. Like we wanted to create like its own entity, and just make it like its own thing. So I stayed away from like promoting it on my own pages as much as possible, and like a little bit just initially to get it started. But our whole like ideology was, let's make like content on these social platforms that's has the potential of virality and getting eyeballs on it, and that's just what we did from the beginning. So we put in a lot of new tactics, and it's like guerrilla marketing in a lot of ways, and just really like pushed, and then it just kept growing. And luckily for our product, like it's very referral based. Like it's such a fun thing that every time someone gets it, they choose to post about it. And we built kind of this entire infrastructure around social media and like brand recognition in just a few months.
So fun. So you sort of said guerrilla marketing, but it was basically like, here, pal, wear this sweatshirt and like run down this street.
Yeah, we were doing like all kinds of stuff. So crazy videos. We had people like, so I got our like TikTok account verified, and we would have people like all over TikTok finding these popular videos, like commenting, because I knew since we were verified and we had followers, it would go to the top of the comment section. So now everyone else seeing that video is going to say, hey, what is this? And click on it, right? And not in a way that seemed like an ad. We would just comment something funny that was related to the video. And we did this for a while, and it helped us a lot grow really fast. And then like a month into it, we started seeing a bunch of other companies doing it. So Slim Jim was doing it, Nutter Butter, Burger King, like all these other things. And by that time we were established. And like I said, we were just like pretty much shoving it down people's throats. And then once we kind of had that base, I was like, all right, cool. Let's go away from that and then just focus on like the brand, what we're creating. So.
And are you a marketing major?
Yeah, I am.
And what are you going to be when you grow up?
I don't know. I'm just like going with the flow. I really enjoy like running a business, especially like building something from the ground up. And I've learned a lot. And something I've noticed is like, you start a business and you kind of learn this like template to follow of like, hey, this worked, this didn't work. And now we've come up with new ideas and like new things that we want to create. And it's like we kind of have a like path to go on, and not necessarily everything's going to go smoothly. Like we understand that, but we know more now than we knew when we started, Giant Hoodies or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a real thing, right? Like, once you have kind of a playbook and you've run it once, running it the second or third time gets a lot easier. Certainly that's been my experience. But I think it's also something just true of people who tend to be serial entrepreneurs, that you always want to like do it better next time. So
Yeah.
it's like, if I could just go back and like, you know, redo steps 3 through 6 of this, it would be so much better. And, people often find themselves in this place of, the next thing and the next thing.
Absolutely. And I think like we've kind of talked about that, but the biggest lesson we've took is like, hey, like we may not know the best way to do this, but we know how to do it this way right now. And until we find something better, we're going to keep doing it like this. So it's been interesting, especially with like how quickly we've grown. It's been very much like a game of catch up. Like one thing will work and then like the next week it no longer works again.
Yeah.
And we just like, so we were growing out of the t-shirt shop. We got too big. We bought a building in Greenland and we're renovating it. And before the renovations were done, we had already outgrown the new building. So we bought a third building, and it's just like things like that. And same with like the supplier that we had talked about in class, where we ran out of all the hoodies in the world somehow. Like had to
all the really big ones anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been really insane. It's just a game of like learning and adapting.
Yeah, for sure. What would you, so I think part of what you're saying, and certainly what I believe to be true, is go with like the 80% rule. Like if you got it like pretty much there, go ahead and push go, because if you wait till you feel like it's 100% ready, it's already going to be out of date. And, that sort of famous Mark Zuckerberg quote of don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Like, get to good and go and keep going. Because what you can't, the only truly non-renewable resource is time. The thing that you can't get back is time. Everything else, you can figure out a way to sort of supplement or recreate or whatever, but time's a tough one.
1,000%. And something we learned, so like recently we got put in a publication, and for that we had to get like 20,000 units ready in 40 days.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a really like big logistical issue. And Jonathan and I were there like long hours trying to figure out exactly like how do we make this process perfect, because we don't have a lot of time. And we probably went through 2 days of just like planning, like testing things out, like, okay, this is how we're going to work. And after like the first week of actually starting, like the process was exponentially different than what we had thought it was. So, I mean, just like you said, like, even if you think you have something perfect, once it starts going, you're probably going to end up saying like, wow, this isn't what we thought, and things have to change anyways. So yeah, I think you're right. Just get it good at 80% and then just kind of learn from there.
Yeah. What was the publication? What was the sort of?
It's actually on an NDA. So if it goes out after November 6th, I can tell you, but
great. Well, when it goes out, you should post it for the class.
Yeah, well, I will let you know. It's a large magazine.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's fun. Well, definitely let everybody know when that happens. I think it's a fun thing to have, an example of people doing something. I don't feel like I'm really helping you very much at this point. So, as things come up that you guys get stuck on, of course, feel free to ask. But I do think, as you start to decide, inevitably you'll get to a place growth trajectory wise where you'll want to do the next thing, or there
Yeah.
will be some pivot point or whatever that will come up, whether it's in a year or in 5 years or whatever. But it sounds like you're kind of on a glide path for this particular thing in terms of what you want to be and do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like we obviously know that this is a very niche product and very like trendy thing. So I mean, you never know how long it could last. It could be here for another year, it could be 5 years, or like you have no clue. So I think another thing we've done that has been really good for me, at least to learn, is like taking the capital and the things we're doing and being able to reinvest them. So
Yeah.
it's not just like this one-time thing, but you're making it to solidify an entire future. So that's helpful.
And how have you thought about that in terms of, I heard you say you guys bought a building, but how have you thought about like your sort of longer term planning? Like you're in the throes of like still trying to finish school and, involved still, I'm assuming, I don't know what the status of the track season is, but still training. Like, how are you thinking about the sort of long-term investment side of things?
Definitely. Track season is still, we're supposed to have it, but who knows? Like it all kind of depends on football. But like one of the things we've done is we're always like planning for the future. So like with the new building we just bought, like we bought it with enough space. It's too much space. We don't need all that space, but we know we're going to need it with X, Y, and Z company that we're planning to start when we're in there as well. So we're kind of like getting everything we need for the future so we don't run into the same problems. But on top of that, like Giant Hoodies, the company LC doesn't have any assets as far as buildings or anything else. We started a separate company that is like a real estate holding company. So all of the buildings we own are under that. And then Giant Hoodies will like rent it from them or lease it
Yeah,
from them.
sure.
So with that company, like we've been doing a lot of like commercial real estate investments, things like not even necessarily in Fayetteville, but like warehouse spaces, things like that in Fort Smith or Little Rock, and just growing like this network of passive income that kind of acts as a like safety if everything goes in the toilet, I guess.
Right. So your other partner, Jonathan, I think you said, right, had already started a few things. Were his parents or his family in any part of these businesses before? Like, had he come? I think real estate's a particularly tough sort of mental headspace for someone who's young. So it's impressive that you guys have taken on the real estate side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan's a few years older than me too, which has been really great to learn from him. But he has a pretty insane story of like how he got to where he is. His parents were never really like entrepreneurial as far as I'm concerned. But he actually started his first business was a kiosk in the mall because he had worked at Journeys and he saw the people at the kiosks and said, "Hey, I should try this out." And the first product he sold was Sham Wows, but it like after the ShamWow trend had gone and passed. So they kept like selling them more for way cheaper, but it's because no one else wanted to buy them.
Yeah.
So he spent all his money on these ShamWows. His apartment was filled with them and like didn't sell any of them. So he was in a really bad spot. And then like as a last ditch effort, he like maxed out his credit cards, all kinds of stuff on these like hair products, like hair straighteners, all these kind of things. And on the first day in that new kiosk, he made like $1,200, and then, like that was like his second win. So he kept doing that. He opened a second kiosk and he saved that money, and then ended up opening a gold store, which was extremely profitable for him. And then opened two more gold stores, and just kind of like kept compounding the things he was doing and learning from them. And then, he's had a lot of businesses. He owned Moped U for a little bit, and obviously Smudgies, which was not his best business, but he learned a lot from it. So yeah, it's just been kind of you keep learning and growing.
That's awesome. And your web guy obviously is a very technical, those are pretty technical skills, but also coming from an entrepreneurial background or spirit, or just you knew him from school, or I'm always interested in how people know their partners, how they meet their partners.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, he was working for Tyson right out of college, to what he thought was his dream job, he had said. And I think he was making like 6 figures, which is really, really great money. And, he just didn't really enjoy what he was doing. Like, didn't really enjoy all the meetings, 9-to-5s and everything like that. And I guess he had went to Jonathan as more of like hey, I want to learn from you. Like, I want to learn how to be my own entrepreneur, be my own like self-employed person. And he started being as a manager for Smudgies, the ice cream shop. So he went from like a 6-figure like tech job to managing an ice cream shop. And it was just like enough to get by, and he kept learning. And then Jonathan and him started a few businesses, and I think they were doing business like a year before we all got together and started up Giant Hoodies. So again, it's just kind of a learning process, and something that I've learned is that you have to be willing to kind of go through the mud for a little bit before like it turns around. So
Oh, that's certainly true. And you have to like be comfortable not knowing how it's going to work.
Yeah,
you don't really know. You can do all the projections and all the modeling and all the planning, and you don't know until you start. And then even after you start for the first, pretty significant amount of time, you still don't know.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I finally sort of got my arms around my healthcare business about the time that my 5-year engagement was ending and I was coming back to the university.
Yeah, no, it's a constant process, but
yeah. Well, what else would you sort of say as like big takeaways from your experience so far? I won't keep you all day. I know you have things to do, but.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. Like, some of the biggest things is probably just like make sure that you have a skill set going into that thing, and base what you're doing around that. And then it always helps, like, if you really enjoy what you do. Like, there's been a lot of times where like I'm at the office from like 8 a.m. to like midnight or something. And it's like, if that felt like a job, if it felt like I was working all the time, like it would suck a lot more. But the fact that I really love what I'm doing, makes it easier when those long hours or whatever happen.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we'll call it for our recording. I'll go ahead and just post this one. I think it'll be more fun than talking about healthcare stuff again this week. So it'll be up for the rest of the class this week. So if you want to direct them to anything, so gianthoodies.com, right?
Gianthoodies.com, yeah.
Right.
Social media, whatever.
All right. Well, go track Hunter and his pals down, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next.